Hey everybody, Aaron here from Honda Pilot Overland. As you can see, I've got my hood up and we have another issue with the Pilot. For those of you who are aware, we trailered our pontoon boat all the way to Florida and back, which for us was over a 600-mile trip. So a really long trip, about 10 hours driving straight. And it towed it there just fine, and on the way back it started overheating. Within the last hour of the trip. So I was trying to figure out, what the problem was. We replaced the thermostat. Then we topped it off, burped it, did all that, and we went off-roading at Uwharrie National Park, and we didn't have any issues with overheating, and I thought maybe the thermostat had fixed the problem. Unfortunately, this past weekend we took the pontoon boat camping, and we overheated on the way there. And when I say overheated, we started running warmer than normal. It was like a quarter of the gauge over normal operating temperature. And basically, it's just a proof that there's an issue with the Pilot. So today we're gonna use a little Mityvac pressure tool that I got, and we're gonna use that to see if we can detect a leak in the system. So this is the tool right here. I was kind of torn between getting a chemical test to try to detect exhaust fumes coming out of the radiator, or this kind of like a leak down test. From my research, this leak down test is a more versatile test. It can help find out if you have a leak in the system, and a leak in the system would definitely cause the symptoms I saw, which is that over time I lost enough fluid to get air in the radiator, and once I had air in the radiator, my maximum cooling potential was lost, and when I'm towing, which is generating extra heat, it just isn't enough to keep up. So this Mityvac system here, it's $50 on Amazon. It comes with a bunch of different fittings. You can actually, with this adapter, you can check the cap to make sure that it's holding the right pressure, that it's releasing at the right time. But today we are going to use the adapter for the Pilot, and we're gonna pressurize the system here. It comes with a nice manual, and when you look in it, it tells you everything you need to know, and it tells you which adapter to use on your system. So here's a shot of the tubing, the fittings, and you just press it on the end of the here, and then screw down the top. I'm gonna do this off camera since I don't have my tripod with me, and I'll be right back. So here it is, all assembled. Got the appropriate radiator adapter there. One of the tips I got from reading reviews on Amazon is that these fittings need to be tightened down as tight as you can. That looked like it was spinning, but it's actually just this whole centerpiece spins. But yeah, make sure you tighten these down, that way it doesn't release pressure that way. So we're gonna put this on the system here. Alright, got it on. From there, you have to look up what pressure your radiator is designed to run at. From my research, this Honda Pilot is designed to run at 16 psi. So if you look at the little gauge here, that would be the top of the yellow box where that yellow arrow is. I'm going to sit here and kind of pump it up. You can see it increasing as we go. It takes a little bit of work, but overall, it's not anything overwhelming. Making our way there. And what this is going to do is, once the system is pressurized, it's going to act as if it's at operating pressure, which is, like when your engine's warmed up and your radiator is, functioning. And a lot of times when your coolant is leaking, it leaks onto something really hot. And so it's basically water, and it evaporates pretty quickly. And so you might have a pretty big leak, or at least, enough of a leak to lose fluid over time. And you might have a hard time detecting it because it's leaking onto, the transmission or the motor where it's hot. So you can see we got it pressurize up to where the yellow arrow is. And what they recommend doing is a leak down test, where you basically just leave it sitting here for about 2 minutes. If the gauge goes down, then you've got a leak somewhere. If you can detect the leak externally, then you have an external leak. If you can't detect a leak, it could be something leaking into the motor. All right, so we've only had this thing pressurized for just a little bit, and we've already lost pressure. Let's see if we can kind of detect where it's leaking. So right here, there's a tube underneath here that's leaking a little bit. And if we come back on the back here and focus it over here, you can see there is already water dripping down from that connection right there. So just in no time flat with this system, I was able to identify 2 leaks. So what I'm going to do is work to replace those fittings, or at least get better connections on them. I can see this hose right here is really swollen and kind of cracked on the end. It's not leaking, but it's swollen and cracked. I need to replace that one. So I'm gonna take some of this stuff apart, see if I can't get those hoses off, and then I'm gonna run to the parts store and see if I can find good replacement hoses for them. All right, we're looking pretty good. I got some new fuel line, which the parts store said was gonna be rated for high enough temperature to be used for these little auxiliary cooling lines. So I replaced this hose, and there's another one in the back here. And then on the back hose, where it was leaking down there, I went ahead and just put 2 hose clamps. We're gonna see if that's enough for right now. The hose didn't look like it was in bad shape. I'm guessing I maybe just didn't have the clamps tightened down enough, but we'll take a look in a second and see. I've just got to put together my DIY raised cold air intake here, and then we'll fire it up and pour in some coolant fluid. Well, I was hoping my problem was going to be these hoses, but while I'm sitting here bleeding the system and burping it, I can see that it is bubbling, but when the bubbles come out, the level does not go down, and I believe that's an indicator that I have a head gasket leak. So now I'm going to have to come up with a game plan for replacing the heads. That way I don't ruin my plans for the summer. Alright, I don't know if you guys could hear me when the motor was on, but it looks like our head gasket is leaking into the exhaust system. I spent a lot of time trying to burp it, but again, like I said, the symptom that I believe I'm seeing is that the bubbles are coming out, but the fluid level is not decreasing. And the only way that could happen is if bubbles were being introduced into the system.